Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Pulse podcast where we ask pulse raising questions about all things Christian related. My name is Raphael. I'm part of our God's Given Mission social media team, and I'm here with MT Omini. Thanks, Mike, for being here. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Today's episode, we are asking the question: do we have a specific assignment on the earth? Over to you.
Do we have a specific assignment on the earth? That's a good question. Do you have a specific assignment on the earth, Ref?
I'd like to believe so,
Yeah?
amongst other assignments, but I don't know if that's right or wrong.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think it's a right or wrong kind of question. I'm curious to find out how you think about your assignment.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, literally, your assignment. What is that to you? Assignment.
I think assignment, or in this case, or in this context, is a synonym of our purpose. The reason that God put us on this earth, there's something that He wants each of us to kind of accomplish. There's something that not that only we can do, but something He's designed for us to do. Now, if we, God forbid, fail to do that thing, obviously we know God is a God that can raise stones in our place to do whatever He wants us to do. But yeah, there's that one thing, or that one thing that He's put us on this earth for, whether it's to cure cancer or to bring the hearts of the nations back to Him, or if it's to bring people to Him through football, whatever. But there's something that God has put us on this earth to do.
Got you. I get where you're coming from, and I think that's how most people think about purpose. I too think about it in a similar way. What is it that God would have me do, as it were? This question is kind of pastoral in nature, because I do think it's something that sometimes, if you're in leadership, you have to sit down with someone to try and help them understand how their unique proclivities and passions, how it all makes sense. But if I'm to speak generally on the matter, Ecclesiastes is a good place to begin. In Ecclesiastes 12, now Solomon is considered generally one of the wisest people who ever lived, right? And so he's often found in Ecclesiastes discussing the point of life, the meaning of life. And so it's a great book if you're considering questions like that. In Ecclesiastes 12, from verse 13 to 14, he kind of gives his reflection on the matter. He says, "Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil." So Solomon there posits this answer to your question. He says it's about honoring God with your thoughts, with your lives, with keeping His commandments, obeying Him. We see that further on developed in the New Testament, that the fruit of love is obedience. So he just says, listen, your purpose is to fear God, obey Him, and honor Him. Now, if I was to kind of have a go at the question, I would say, and I'm not as wise as Solomon, right? But I would say, what's God's will for my life? Well, if we jump all the way back to Leviticus 19, it's a good place to begin, because an instruction is given to the people there. So it's an instruction is given to Israel. Israel is really shorthand for us, God's chosen people. Here's the instruction. This is Leviticus 9:2. "Speak to the entire assembly of Israel and say to them, 'Be holy, because I, the Lord your God, am holy.'" So equally, what they are being told there is, be holy. That is the essence of your life, is be holy. Now, the Hebrew word for holy is a word that's kadesh. And if we kind of look for the root term of that, it would be kadash, which means to be separated for special purposes. It means to be kind of set apart, for want of a better term. Now, this might sound a bit kind of lofty, but most people enter into the kingdom when they're saved with a kind of works-based mentality, by virtue of that's just how we've always lived. And so it takes us a while to get rid of that. So when people come to me and they ask that question sometimes, what they really mean is, what do I need to do, Mike? Like, what is God want me to do? And notice in this portion of scripture, God isn't so much focused on what He wants us to do as His focus is on who He wants us to be. He wants us to be holy. He wants us to set our life apart for special use. He wants us to avail ourselves for his purposes. That is by far the initial assignment you have, is to be available to God, is to leave the throne room of your life and say, God, you have a seat, right? That's what's important. And Romans 12 is really important. I know me and you have spoken about this before. In Romans 12, I don't have it up for some reason, but if I get that up really quickly, this is Romans 12, and this speaks about us being a living sacrifice, right? Says this: therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, offer up your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. That this is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. This passage is so interesting because it gives us a very interesting sequence. Another way to read the Bible is to read what it says, but consider the sequence and how it's arranged. The child of God refuses to be conformed to the ways of the world. So there's an assignment we have to kind of just push away stuff that the world kind of shoves in our face. Instead, allows himself to be transformed by the Spirit. That's another purpose we're given, to avail our lives such that the Spirit might actually do something interesting with our lives. And then we are to renew our minds according to the things of God. That means to kind of garbage in, garbage out, really, really kind of, wash your mind with the word as much as you possibly can. And it says, then you'll know God's perfect will. I think that means then God will begin to illuminate your path. Decisions become easier because you start to see how things add up, so to speak. In short, I'm saying, rather than what do I need to do, we have to be Christians that ask, who do I need to be? How do I sit at God's feet? How do I avail my life to him? How do I keep all the things on the table, right? I know we have another podcast called On the Table, but what I'm saying is, how do I put everything? So like, full disclosure, I'm like, God, whatever you want to do with me, you can actually do with me. Like, I'm available. That is by far our first and primary assignment. From there, God takes, just again, anecdotally, people's passions, interests, skills, and through godly counsel, through prayer, you can start to kind of work out how they all interrelate. And some of us fit into certain corners of the world better than others. But those are just things we do. Far more important is who we are and how we be, so to speak, and that's what we should spend more attention on.
So do you think then that, for example, like you said, this is something that it's a pastoral question. It's a thing that a lot of pastors and leaders of the church ask people when, like you said, helping people to try and figure out who they are, what they want to do. Is it something that we should stress isn't as important, trying to figure out that one thing that God has created you for? Should we be stressing that?
Well, I get you, but the way I would think about it is this: God has created us all for the same reason, to enjoy him, to glorify him, to have communion with him. That's why you were created.
Yeah.
The next question, which is, what should I do? That's not what we weren't created to do. We're created to be.
Yeah.
That next question needs to be treated with a different degree of seriousness. And what I mean by seriousness isn't the right word. A different degree of... it's not as fatal as people often make it. So you have people who sit down, they're like, am I meant to be a teacher or a doctor? And that's like the deepest question ever. And it's like, do both? Or do one after the other? Like, it's just not that gripping a question. So much more gripping question is, how do I enjoy God through whatever situation I find myself? That's something you should set up all night thinking about, not which particular school you work in. Because, all that stuff just dramatizes what are meant to be wisdom decisions. Like, God has given you a brain. He's given you godly counsel. He's given you all these kind of resources that you can use to make some very simple decisions. Because what I would hate is for somebody to kind of wake up in the morning, pull out a bowl of cereal, put some bread, and be like, toast or cereal? Oh, I don't know. God, what is your will? What is your will? What is your perfect will? I would be like, you can have both. Or have one, which one are you more hungry for? Like, that's just not a gripping question. In the same way, God has created you for X, Y, and Z. So for me, if that person saying, why was I created, I would be annoying and tell them you're created to enjoy God. Enjoy him first and foremost. In terms of what you should do, let's sit down and prayerfully work out like what you're good at, what you enjoy, what makes sense to the market economy. Like we've got lots of faculties that God has given us to make that second kind of point. But the first one, you must develop a strong sense of how to enjoy God.
I like that. I think it's made me look at that really differently. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it. Please continue to like, comment, share, subscribe on any platform that you are using to listen or watch this. But yeah, we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.